Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all lines are on a listen-only mode until the question and answer portion. At that time, if you'd like to ask a question, we'll open the lines for you to do so. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn it over to your host today, Bonnie Lipton. You may begin.
Hi, everyone. This is Bonnie Lipton from SPRC, and welcome to our last session today for the Campus Sustainability Training Series, session number 4, Securing Funder and Resources. We were asking before we started some questions about what was the most important thing you've learned so far from the Sustainability Training Series, and we got some great answers about things like working with the community, the importance of collaborating outside of the institution, developing MOUs, compiling data and presenting it to the administration, and also, pre-planning for the transition and not waiting until the grant ends. So thank you so much for answering that, and let's get started. So first, a quick disclaimer. We at the Suicide Prevention Research Center is supported from a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, SAMHSA, and the Center for Mental Health Services, and the views, opinions, and content expressed in this product do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of CMHS, SAMHSA, or HHS. So our speakers today are your old friends, Irene and Bonnie from SPRC. We also have 2 alumni Campus GLS speakers, Joe Behan from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and Bob Small from the University of Southern Maine. And they'll be talking later in the session about how they've secured funding and resources. I'm now going to turn it over to Irene, who's going to do our tech intro. Take it away, Irene.
Thank you, Bonnie. Hi, everyone. I know it's been a while since our last session in April, so we just wanted to go over some tech features to help you be fully engaged. Tech issues can happen at any time, so if you experience any tech difficulties, please type your questions at any time into the Q&A pod on the right-hand side of your screen, and Laura from the tech team will be able to assist you. You can make the presentation screen larger by clicking on the full screen icon located in the upper right-hand side of the slide presentation. If you hit the escape button, you will return to normal view. I know I said this before, but please do not put us on hold music at any time during the webinar, as the hold music will play for everyone. To share your thoughts, comments, feedback, or questions, ask questions regarding the content, click on the chat icon as you can see from the slide here. You can maximize the chat pod by clicking on the icon that looks like an upside down triangle, as you can see on the slide next to the Q&A and participant pods. If you have any technical issue, please chat into the Q&A pod and Laura will be able to assist you. Now that we've gone through the tech orientation, let's practice using our chat. Please chat in your caption for this picture. Once again, the chat pod is located right above the Q&A pod on the right-hand side of your screen. Don't forget to select all participants before you send your chat so everyone can see your caption. If you're having trouble locating the chat icon, please chat into the Q&A section and Laura will be able to assist you. Let me give 1 more minute for people to chat in. Bonnie said, "Mom is asleep. I'm going to party. High five." That's a really cute caption. Kate said, "Bye, Felicia." That's a really good one, too. If you have any other captions you want to chat, feel free to chat in by clicking on all participants. Courtney said, "We all have that one friend who's camera ready." Yes, we do. Yep. Bonnie said that's a great one. Courtney, I totally agree. I'll just give a few more, just a couple more seconds for people to chat in if they're thinking of great captions. Oh, Cynthia said, "Ah, sweet, great to think, cool for the summer." Absolutely. That's a really good one. Yeah, so thank you everyone for chatting in your captions. It seems like everyone is able to chat and be acclimated to the tech, so that's really good to know. And now switching gears a little bit, this is a 4-part webinar series, as you may be aware. We discussed about building momentum and fostering leadership last month. Today is sadly our last session, and we'll be discussing securing resources and funding. From our previous sessions, we never had any issues with expectations, so we won't be going over this in too much detail, but a lot of you have expressed concern around securing resources or funding, so we just wanted to strongly encourage you to ask lots of questions to each other and to 2 awesome guest speakers we have today. As you know from our previous sessions, this is a very interactive webinar series, so you'll be asked to share your thoughts and comments, so feel free to chat in as we go along as well. And so now jumping into today's agenda, we will have some time to listen to a few participants sharing about their sustainability success stories. Then Bonnie and I will go over today's topic of securing resources and funding. And we have a great panel discussion prepared for you with Joe Behan and Bob Small to hear more about how they were able to secure resources and funding. Finally, we will wrap up with discussions about next steps. And so thank you so much for those people who sent in your sustainability success stories. Now we will take some time to hear about how some of the participants were able to apply some of the concepts from this webinar series for their sustainability planning. I'll be asking the operator, Lauren, to unmute the phone lines for everyone. So if you have to mute yourself, just press *6. And Lauren, do you mind unmuting everyone so we can hear all the participants? Lauren, can you let us know once everyone has been unmuted?
The lines are now open.
Okay, thank you so much. So Brenda from Eastfield College, are you here joining us today?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Brenda. How are you?
Good, thank you.
That's great. I know you guys sent in a sustainability success story, so did you want to share anything in particular today?
Yes. One of the partnerships we're really excited about is the partnership with Human Resources. We've partnered with Human Resources to provide gatekeeper training to our faculty, staff, and administrators through the Cognito at-risk software training. So each year, the employees will be required to complete the online suicide education module. And after they have completed that module, the employees will receive staff enrichment requirements credit, as well as valuable communication and referral tools. So we're really excited about that, and that's something that can sustain after the grant has ended. And we're also excited about the partnership with the Office of Student Engagement through their Workout Wednesdays, Wellness Days. And that is every other Wednesday during the semester, students and employees were invited to enjoy fitness classes in our outdoor courtyard we have on campus. And FACE has partnered with the Office of Student Engagement to provide suicide education materials. And that way employees and students can get the benefit of physical wellness as well as information about mental wellness. So those are our 2 success stories that we're really excited about, and we're optimistic that those will continue after the grant has ended.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Brenda. And we are also very excited to hear about your success story and your collaboration with the HR and the Office of Student Engagement. It seems like you guys are building great infrastructure, so that's really awesome to hear. And now we will move on to Cynthia from Tennessee Technological University. Is Cynthia on the line?
Hello.
Hi, Cynthia. We can hear you loud and clear. I know Cynthia and the team have been very busy meeting with different stakeholders to discuss about sustainability.
Yes.
Did you want to share any specific meeting you had to discuss about sustainability?
Two of these are in the statewide, and then we have two campus groups that we're working with sustainability, in addition to multiple campus partnerships that have been developed. So the two off-campus participating agencies, one is the state representative in Middle Tennessee for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Kat Cloud. And she's based, I believe she's based out of Nashville, so she's about 75 miles from us. But she came here and spent the day on campus. We had lunch with her, and she will probably be back in the fall to make some additional presentations on campus. And then the next one, we have a statewide suicide prevention network known as the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, TSPN. And Dr. Mick had talked with Joanne Purley with that agency, and she's fairly new to them, but she was real excited to work with us on sustainability for the grant. But they will specifically continue to supply the QPR booklets, the little blue booklets that we give out each time that we have a QPR presentation. And she would indicate that she would try to help us secure any additional funding, but would talk to us about that further, as in maybe providing a letter of support if we needed it, but would also continue as a statewide partner. And some of our staff participate in their regional meetings. I believe it's once a month. The two on-campus organizations that we've been able to begin to start looking at some funding is our University Advancement Services, and they work with university fundraising and in particular with alumni. And so they readily agreed to see if, when they talk to donors, if they would be appropriate to help us fund some of the grant activities. And then also the Office of Research on campus is looking about additional grant funding that might be useful once our grant is completed.
Wow, Cynthia, it seems like you have been having a very busy time just securing funding and resources and just partnering up with the AFSP and also the statewide suicide prevention network. So I'm really glad to hear that everything is going really well, and thank you for sharing. And I know Tracy Meyer from University of Louisville couldn't join, but Oh, Tracy, are you on? Or Jerry, I know that you were joining as well. Jerry, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay, Tracy.
I do know that Tracy just joined in, but I'm not sure if she has audio for you.
Oh, got it. Okay, Jerry, did you want to share on behalf of Tracy?
Well, I'm not sure what Tracy submitted, but I can tell you.
Yeah, so I can share, and then you can feel free to add anything more additional. So Tracy said she was able to, with the help of a small group of students, staff, and community members, they had their second annual AFSP Out of the Darkness walk, and the participants tripled compared to the first year, and they fundraised more than $10,000. So, and she was able to get like 3 local TV stations to cover the walk, so it seems like a great success. Jerry, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to mention, because I believe that is sustainable with the partnerships that we've developed for the walk. And also I would say the other activity has been Tracy's involvement with our Mayor's Task Force for Violence Prevention, which also includes suicide prevention, making those connections throughout the city, so that the university can continue to partner with agencies and especially the local government in suicide prevention activities after the grant has been fulfilled.
Hi,
absolutely.
This is Tracy. Can you hear me?
There it is.
Yes, Tracy, we can hear you loud and clear.
Apparently my line had been muted, so I just heard that they had unmuted it, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Tracy, if you have anything additional to add, feel free to add.
Well, I think Jerry covered a lot of it. Part of the task force with the mayor's violence and suicide prevention, it's
a very large advisory board that has moved from that, and now I'm working with specifically suicide prevention and a health task force with other individuals from the University of Louisville, as well as other agencies working on zero suicide here in the Louisville metro area.
Wow, that's really great to hear that you're able to draw on so many different partnerships. So I'm excited to hear about where that a new partnership will lead you. So thank you so much for sharing, Tracy and Jerry. And Marty Thompson from Clemson wasn't able to join, but their team submitted their success story. They had quite a few, but just to highlight a few, just one or two, they were able to have an advocacy training program offered campus-wide and required all resident life staff and RAs to participate in this training, and the evaluation data shows increase in bystander behavior. So this is really exciting data that they can use to promote for the sustainability and build a case around the sustainability. And they were also able to really engage students in their Clemson's suicide prevention mission, and also talked about how the website will be able to help them with the sustainability. And I know that we didn't have time to go over all the participants, but if you have any specific questions for Eastfield College, University of Louisville, Tennessee Tech, please let us know.
So this is Bonnie from SBRC, University of Louisville. I'd love to hear more about how you're collaborating with the zero suicide folks in your state.
Sure. Part of it is that there is a zero suicide academy that the state grant is funding, and so we have some collaboration with the state grant as well. They are providing our QPR booklets, and we report to them how many of their booklets that we use when we do our trainings. So they're doing the funding, and then the invitation was sent out to various hospitals and organizations that are providing behavioral health services. So they're actually will be attending the Zero Suicide Academy for 2 days. And then post that, I believe it's next month, about June 26th, there is a meeting with the Health Advisory Board as well as other partners that are interested in zero suicide. We looked at it from the University of Louisville attending, but felt that we weren't quite ready to do the academy, so we're going to follow up with the 4-hour meeting post that and look at how we can apply that at the university. So there's a really big push. Centerstone recently merged with 7 County Services, which is our community mental health provider, and they have a zero suicide initiative in place. So I think that they're a great impetus here in Louisville and in Kentucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really great that you're partnering with local providers and also the state suicide prevention grant and others to
and we have schools, so the Jefferson County Public School System is one of the largest school systems. Well, it is the largest in Kentucky, but I believe it's one of the largest in the nation. And so they're part of the board as well. So it's really nice to have, you know, our really K through 12 schools and their superintendent and everyone kind of be on board with programming for suicide prevention at those levels of students as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's really great. Thank you.
Sure.
Were there any other questions for our Eastfield, Louisville, or Tennessee Tech folks? Okay, well then we'll move on. Operator, can you please mute the phone lines?
Lines have been muted.
Thank you. So we're going to move on today to talk about today's topic, securing resources and funding. And I love this quote. It really encapsulates what sustainability is about. You know, it's one thing to maintain a house as opposed to building the home. We have the money to build the house from the GLS grant. and now we're maintaining it. And that's from a GLS campus alumni from the Leaving a Legacy report, which I believe we've talked about with you guys before, which was a report SPRC did in 2013 to interview campus, tribal, and state grantees about their suicide prevention activities. So, using this metaphor about a house, once the GLS grant is over, you're not going to keep on building your suicide prevention house. You're not going to be adding rooms or expanding it or putting in a new kitchen. Once the GLS grant is over, you're going to be watching over the house. Maybe you'll put in insulation before the winter, or checking for mouse holes, or making sure there's no foundation cracks. So you have to change your mindset. And if there's one nugget of information that I want you to take away from this series, is that, and we've said it before, is that you won't be able to sustain every part of your GLS suicide prevention activities. So you'll have to be strategic about what to continue. And there's really no one-size-fits-all model for funding and sustainability. Every campus is different. As we know, if you recall in the our first webinar in January, I showed how everyone attending you're all different. Some of you are community colleges, some of you are private colleges, some of you are public, some of you guys are large universities, some small, some rural, and some urban. So you're all very different. And your ways of finding funding and sustainability is going to be different. Now I'd like to share a personal story with you all. So as some of you may know, prior to joining SPRC, I was one of you. I was a suicide prevention coordinator for a GLS grant at Tufts University, which is a relatively small private university in New England. And I was their grant coordinator for the whole 3 years from the beginning. And it was a wonderful experience helping to nurture suicide prevention on campus and working with students, faculty, and staff. But when the grant ended, my position ended too, and my supervisor and the members of the grant team decided that they were not going to attempt to secure additional funding to continue my position. And you know what? For Tufts University, that was absolutely the right decision. It had nothing to do with me or my work, but they didn't need me anymore. I had helped build the house and helped with gatekeeper training and coordination and all the STAMHSA requirements and the cross-site national outcomes evaluation requirements. But the house was built now, and there were people on campus who could maintain it and check the foundation and put in the insulation. And although it was not great having to leave my job, I was really proud that suicide prevention was so ingrained on the campus and that they didn't need me anymore, that the efforts could continue. Now, that's not going to be the case for all of you. And for some campuses, it's going to be vital to have a suicide prevention coordinator stay on. Everyone's different, as I keep on saying. But I want to make clear, not getting your suicide prevention coordinator position funded does not mean you failed at sustainability, because every campus is different, and all your needs are going to be different. So we've talked about how not everything has to be sustained, which is why strategic planning is so important when you have limited resources. Hopefully the worksheet we gave you as homework was helpful for you in planning what activities to continue and who to partner with. And so, be thinking about when you prioritize securing resources to support staff time to coordinate ongoing suicide prevention efforts, as your activities are unlikely to continue without some level of central coordination. When I left Tufts University, the person who took it over was a member of the counseling center, the director of outreach. But it could be through any department or person. And also remember, once your GLS grant is over, you won't need as much staff time because you won't have the STAMHSA or National Outcomes Evaluation administrative requirements, which I know can take some time. So here are some strategies for continuing activities after the funding ends. And on the next slide, I'm going to give examples of different ways to do this. So you can integrate your program components into a larger organization. You can tap into partner resources, financial or in-kind. You can reconfigure your programs to adjust for fewer resources. Use technology in place of face-to-face communication. And you can stockpile resources towards the end of the grant, like ordering a ton of your red folder 911 guides, recertifying trainers, and of course finding champions, which we talked about quite a bit. But remember, while all of these strategies can be successful in sustaining efforts, some are more sustainable in the long term than others. So for example, stockpiling materials or recertifying trainers, it may sustain program activities in the short term, but it's not really a long-term solution as additional resources will be needed when materials run out and change or certifications expire. So here are some examples of different ways to partner. We have Residence Life. You could coordinate or fund gatekeeper trainings for Residence Life student leaders and staff, and they take that over. Partnering with student mental health groups on campus like Active Minds or NAMI, and having them promote mental health events, workshops, and campaigns around campus. And I hope you will be partnering with student mental health groups. I believe almost all, if not all of you, are doing that, but it's really important. Partnering with a graduate pharmaceutical studies department, if you have one in your university, to coordinate the safe disposal of medications initiative, very important for lethal means restriction. Or if you have a graduate psychology or social work department on your campus, ask some graduate students to administer a PHQ-2 surveys at health services for all students as a screening. Local substance abuse coalition, bringing AA or NA meetings onto campus. Working with your community veterans affairs to provide events and resources, or coordinating with your state suicide prevention office, pay to train providers on campus in different mental health trainings. And we just heard University of Louisville talking about that, how their state suicide prevention office and zero suicide folks were helping with their QPR gatekeeper training efforts. And I also want to add something here. All these activities that I just talked about, I didn't make them up out of my head. It's all been done by past grantees, GLS campus grantees, and I couldn't tell you who. For example, the graduate students administering PHQ-2 survey, that's from University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, GLS grantee that ended in 2015. So these are all real things that you can do.
Thanks, Bonnie. As you are aware from your own experiences, communication comes into play at every step of your grant effort, from involving stakeholders to getting community buy-in, as we discussed from our last session. It is important to communicate your program successes to the administration, partners, and students, and I know people have been chatting that in the beginning of the session, so we all know that. And as we covered from our previous session, it's important to use data to build your case for sustainability, as Kate mentioned in the chat. I would strongly encourage you to think about existing data, such as your SPDC information, satisfaction survey about the on-campus counseling services, or gatekeeper training data, and how you can effectively share this existing data to show the importance of suicide prevention efforts. Personal stories can help give a face to statistics, so remember to include any personal stories from your target audience, and this can be students, faculty, or staff. And as Jessica from Amherst College shared during last month's webinar, she talked about the importance of involving students in the advocacy process. Empowering students to go meet with the president and deans during the office hours to talk about the importance of suicide prevention effort can make a huge difference. As the quote shows in the slide, it's important to remember to fight with both statistics and passion. So we all know that it can be really challenging to secure funding and resources. There are some strategies that former and current grantees have used to successfully secure funding and resources. First and foremost, before your grant ends, it's important to discuss ways to obtain the matching funds or in-kind donations such as staff time, technology, material, required from the GLS grant beyond the grant period. Our speaker for the day, Joe, will talk about how he was able to secure the matching funding from his school in a bit. You can also think about how you can work with other grants on campus, such as Violence Against Women Act or Substance Abuse Prevention grants, and how you can piggyback their efforts and add suicide prevention to the activities. Other speakers from previous sessions have mentioned the importance of partnering with the grants department if you have one on your campus. If you don't have a grants department at your college, don't worry, because you can visit the website as you see on the screen, grants.gov, and you can search for funding opportunities or even sign up for the weekly Spark, which is a weekly newsletter from SPRC. This newsletter includes news articles, research summaries, and funding opportunities. And once your grant ends, you'll be automatically subscribed to the campus alumni listserv from SPRC, so we will also send out any specific funding opportunities that we come across. There's also the college suicide prevention listserv, which is part of UT Austin email. You can subscribe to this list by sending an email to that address you see on the screen, CSSP_listserv. And as University of Louisville and other people talked about, it's very important to connect with your state contacts. And our speaker today, Bob Small, will go over in details about how he was able to work with the GLS state grant team. And so how do you connect with your state contact if you haven't done so? You can go to our website, as you can see from the screen, and as you can see, go to the organizations and click on states. As you can see, you can filter by your state. And I'm using Alabama as an example here. The state contacts you see here are Betsy Cackle and Judith Harrington. And there are a few parts that I wanted to point out from the state page. If you visit the state page, as you can see here, you can take a look at the state suicide prevention website, state coalition website, state and community organizations on your at a state level, and current GLS and NSSP grantees. For Alabama, we see that there are 3 GLS grantees, 1 state and 2 campuses, so you can also connect with your fellow GLS campus grantees. And also you can take a look at the state's prevention plan to see how you can collaborate with your state. So now I'll turn it over to Bonnie.
Great, thanks, Irene. So that was a great overview about funding. And now we're going to talk a little bit about infrastructure. So remember our lovely house metaphor? Now let's think about the infrastructure of a house and what you've already built. I know this can be a bit of a vague term. Sometimes you might think, well, what do you mean about infrastructure? So we're talking about policies, about protocols, referral networks, data systems, advisory councils. These are all the items that mean suicide prevention is embedded in your campus, and less work by you and your partners to keep the efforts going. And you'll probably find that since your initial funding over the past 2 to 3 years, you've developed strong infrastructure so you can sustain activities with fewer resources. So here's some examples about what I mean. You have MOUs and data sharing agreements. Someone chatted in that they had just developed a bunch. I apologize that I don't remember who chatted that in the beginning. So because you have those, you don't need as much staff time to track down the data you need to make your case to administration or communicate with providers when students are in a crisis, like at your local hospital. And hey, you also have established crisis protocols. Well, now it takes much less staff time to communicate with faculty and staff when students are in crisis because you know what to do. And you know what to do when someone has a medical withdrawal or you need to do emergency notification. That information's already there. You have an enhanced outside providers referral list. Well, that's great. You don't need as much staff time to contact providers regarding availability and qualifications and communicate with providers about student needs. And hey, you also have a suicide prevention task force. Well, you can communicate easily with your on and off campus partners now about mental health and suicide prevention, plan and implement activities, and educate and train partners about mental health. So these are all infrastructure items that you probably already have on your campus or that you're developing that's so important for sustainability. I just want to take a second. Are there any, I know we just gave you a ton of information. Are there any questions? Feel free to chat them in the next minute. So I just want to give you guys a second to type it in if you need to. Okay, I don't see anyone chatting in, so we're going to move into our panel discussion. But of course, there'll be time later to ask any questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Irene to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Bonnie. We have invited two special speakers for a panel discussion today, and before I introduce them, just a reminder that you can chat in your comments or questions throughout this discussion session, because sometimes you come up with a question and forget it, so feel free to chat in your questions as we go along. And so I just wanted to take this time to introduce Joe Behan, who is the Executive Director of Counseling, Health, and Disability Services at School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and Bob Small is the Director of Counseling Services at the University of Southern Maine. Both of them are from Cohort 5 and were able to secure resources and funding to sustain a lot of their suicide prevention efforts beyond the GLS grant. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We will start out by asking Joe to give a brief overview of his campus and the grant goals. Hi, Joe. You might want to press *6 to unmute yourself. So it seems like Joe is having a little trouble, so we can start out by Bob. Oh, Joe, okay. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't sure if I'd been unmuted or not. So hello, everyone. It's good to be here and back with folks working on these grants. They're really important. So I'm at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and SAIC is an independent private college of art and design located in downtown Chicago. And there's about 3,600 students here, graduate and undergraduate. And at this art school, we tend to have higher prevalence rates of mental illness than you'd find at a lot of other schools. And, you know, our main grant goal was to get another position here within our counseling service and our wellness center to help with demand and to help carry out our mission. And we initially framed that as a care manager position, and as we went through the process, evolved it in our proposal into a mental health promotion specialist. And some other things that we wanted to accomplish were to do more mental health first aid training, which we'd started to do previously, to continue to do on a regular basis the Healthy Mind Study, which we've continued, and to develop another part that we built into the grant was to develop a program called Thrive, which was a web-based program focused on depression care. So those were our main ideas for what we wanted to accomplish with our grant.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Joe. Bob, could you give us a brief overview of your campus and what your grant goals were? You might want to press *6 to unmute yourself. I'll let you know once we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good.
Yes, Bob. Hi.
Hi. Just a little bit about our campus. University of Southern Maine is a public university. We have 3 campuses, one in Portland, Maine, one in Gorham, Maine, and one in the Lewiston-Auburn area. We have about 8,000 students. 20% of those students are residential. 80% are really non-traditional commuter students that live in the greater Portland area, which is a challenge to do suicide prevention because we don't necessarily have our students on campus as much. My grant goals, put very bluntly, I got really tired of the number of students that killed themselves each year. So in a general sense, I just wanted to reduce the rate of suicide and wanted to do that through early identification of problems, train observers on campus and other people so that they could funnel students to us, and to do early intervention. So we embarked on enhancing the awareness of suicide and the kinds of things that, and for people to staff, students, faculty to be aware enough to send people our way and do the warm handoffs. That was really our goal.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. So absolutely, I know you describe a lot of your grant goals, which is ultimately to reduce suicide, and just wondering, how did you identify what activities to continue after the grant?
I think it was really important for me to ask myself what are the priorities. We have three components to our suicide prevention program, still do. We have maintained all three. The first one is the development of a student support network, which those of you that don't know, it trains natural helpers to be better helpers and to recognize when people are in trouble. We have an interactive screening program through the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Still have that. That deals with early identification and early intervention, and we do suicide awareness training. But it's important to ask, it was important to me when I lost my coordinator, what are the priorities? What have we been most successful at? And what's viable within this climate? What can I maintain? What can I reduce? Do I have to eliminate anything? Thankfully, I haven't had to do that. I have had to depend more on some of my outside partners, which has been a very productive relationship with, for example, NAMI and other groups. They've stepped in and helped us out. That's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, and absolutely. We talked a lot about building partnership and the importance when it comes to sustainability, so that's a really great point. And Joe, can you describe a little bit about how you were able to identify what activities to continue after the grant?
Yeah, what was important to us was to continue the activities that we believe were making a difference on our campus. And those that stood out over the 3 years, and we tested things out, we evolved some new things, and we continued with some things that were working previously. But for us, having the mental health promotion specialist was key. For us, that was a central part of our infrastructure, and continuing with that person was really going to be essential for us, and we were successful in getting that approved. But also, the mental health first aid training really took off on our campus. We continue to do it to this day. We've trained almost 1,000 people now in that 8-hour training program, faculty, students, and staff, and fill every program that we offer, every training. We developed something called the Wellness Center Student Support Network out of the grant. We didn't propose that at the onset, but learned about some efforts at other colleges and universities, especially WPI, which was funded for 2 grant cycles to develop their student support network. So we developed that here on campus, and it gave a very strong student voice to the efforts. And even at one point we had our provost come in and meet with about 45 students who were part of the network. It was very convincing to her that student involvement was working on our campus to prevent suicide. The Healthy Mind Study is something we do every 3 years and gave us great pre-post data on what may have changed over the course of the years with our funding. And the one thing we didn't continue with was this Thrive program, the web-based program. We put a fair amount of money into it, about $30,000 a year across the 3 years. And we developed a good program with an external partner, but felt that as the grant ended that it would be too much to try to sustain and involve too much effort that we didn't have the resources to put into. But key for us was being very strategic really from the onset in making sure that mental health promotion position would get sustained. And for us, we did a lot to pull that off, and that allowed us to keep the other things going as well.
Yeah, the strategic planning piece that we hear a lot from your story definitely probably will resonate with this group as well. And Bob, I know that you mentioned that you weren't able to sustain a full-time coordinator, and were still able to sustain like all 3 components of the grant. So could you describe a little bit more about how you were able to carry out your efforts without a coordinator?
Yes. I was very anxious when I lost my coordinator. Didn't know if I could do it or not. And thankfully, It has been scaled back somewhat, but we still have all three components. I think it's okay. I know that you can do it without a full-time coordinator. But it is very, very important to be strategic. What I did is I looked at both my external resources and partnerships, made an assessment of those, my internal resources and partnerships, and also looked at the funding, both internally and externally. And in terms of external partnerships, while you have the grant, I know that most of you are in the process or have created relationships with outside partners. And those relationships can be sustained. And what I did is we had a state advisory committee on suicide prevention that I joined while I was a grantee, and then became a part of a larger network. And the state moved into, just about as my grant ended, they received a GLS statewide grant. And I was already a part of that network and had relationships, et cetera. So I used that and received some of the money. They took a little bit of money, $10,000 to $20,000 a year, out of the GLS statewide grant and gave that to me to continue my efforts, which was very beneficial. Internally, I had to ask myself, what is my commitment? What is my commitment? Commitment to suicide and reducing it. And as a director of a counseling center, I have many responsibilities, but I see suicide as a major responsibility for us to intervene and do prevention. But how could I continue within my role? I had to ask myself that. And I think there are many things that I do that really are. Suicide prevention is a part of my role. I have to ask, how can staff support? I have 7 professional staff. How can they support suicide prevention with all of the people coming through the door? And later I will explain how staff have stepped forward and assist. So we do a fair amount of in-kind work. I've nurtured relationships with faculty. I myself teach part-time. I've joined that network. And the other thing I've done is I've expanded with them the concept of suicide prevention, because it's not just about talking about suicide prevention for me. It's also about engagement and belonging, assisting a faculty member who has a depressed student in their class. And then the final internal process, which has helped, is the relationship with students. We have some student champions. I know every campus does, and because of the opiate overdose issue that's across the country, we assisted in the establishment of a recovery center, and we've joined with those students around wellness, and we've done student support network training there, et cetera. So that's a little bit about how I've continued to sustain it. You have to become a part of your community in a meaningful way, externally and internally.
Yeah, thank you so much for just making another clear point about the importance of partnership. And I know both of you have mentioned already a lot of your partners that from the previous questions I've asked, but Joe, can you describe a little bit more about which departments you work with to sustain your suicide prevention efforts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the key ones internally, and I'll talk mostly internally, actually all internally. The key departments were the ones I oversee. We started really from counseling, and then we made sure to build in staff time from our disability service and our health service too, and into student affairs as well. So we probably had 12 to 14 people built into our grant, starting within our counseling, health, and disability services and spread through student affairs. And they were trainers for the mental health training, were some of the roles, and and just carrying out responsibilities related to the grant. So that was key. But we had a couple of things emerge over the course of the grant time. One was there was an opportunity to replace the first person who started, who left after about a year and a half as our mental health promotion coordinator, with someone from our art therapy program. And this met the interests of the art therapy program and eventually having someone within our wellness center doing clinical work. And so the art therapy our therapists that we hired to be mental health promotion specialists, as the grant came to a close, we were able to create the position so that it not only continued with the mental health promotion work, but also started clinical services around art therapy within our counseling service. So there was a win-win there for us and for the art therapy program that helped make a difference in getting the position approved. And also, another thing that happened, our early college program, we have 15 and 16-year-olds come in the summer and stay in the residence halls and sample college life for 2 to 4 weeks. And often those students, it's a testing ground for whether or not they want to come to the school. We had 2 suicide attempts in the last year of our grant within that program. And this is a program that was really freestanding at the time. And one of the things we negotiated with the vice provost was to develop more of a consultative relationship with that program that included our mental health promotion specialist. So we did some horse trading really right at the end of the grant period as we were trying to sustain the position, where we built in those responsibilities and got their support too. So a couple of key stakeholders from outside of Wellness Center and Student Affairs were our therapy program and early college program, and became people who supported funding the position that we started with the grant because some responsibilities were built in that met their needs. So creating win-win situations with those people was key.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that sounds like a really strategic planning process from your end. And Bob, could you describe a little bit more about which departments you've worked with and just externally and internally as well?
Yeah. Again, externally, I primarily there were 2 groups that were most important to me. There was 3. There was a state advisory committee, and secondly, there was NAMI and the state CDC. When the state received its statewide grant, it went to the CDC, who then contracted with NAMI to provide the statewide services. And so again, the funding, it was very, very important for me to maintain relationships with those people, and primarily did it in the advisory committee over time. So that, and what I shared with them was each would meet once a month, and I'd have an opportunity to share what we were doing in the statistics and how many students served, problems that we ran into, and I think that they really appreciated our efforts. And then NAMI, also used NAMI to assist with my gatekeeper training, suicide awareness, which has continued, by the way, after the grant period. We do some suicide awareness on campus, and NAMI comes in and also assists us periodically. So that was the primary external funder. And then in terms of internal funding, we've used, I have a graduate assistant in suicide prevention. And how I got that was by working with the vice president of student life. And I'm a member of the Center for Collegiate Mental Health, and we give the Counseling Center Assessment of Psychological Symptoms, the CCAP. It's great data. And it's shared, and every month I send that to the administration, and it's data about, in that data is how many people report suicidal ideation and have attempted. And it's a self-report that students do when they first come into the counseling center. So that's kept it on their screen and in their awareness. The other thing that this has been an interesting year, it's really important. to not lose focus and intervene where possible. And in classrooms, we often go to classrooms and do a suicide awareness presentation. We do postvention when there's a student death. We make ourselves available. So the faculty, staff, administration are very aware of us. And that has not been easy this year. It may not be easy for some of you because of other issues that are happening in our society. Social justice and opiate overdoses, for example, have been much more of a priority for the university. So it took a fair amount of focus to assure that we keep suicide prevention as a priority.
I love that point you made about just keeping the priority and like thinking about that. And Joe, could you describe a little bit more about, I know you mentioned that you were able to just sustain the coordinator positions and just our therapists, but could you talk a little bit more about how you were able to build a case for funding beyond the GLS grant?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd start by just highlighting the data that was most helpful for us was our Healthy Minds data. The Healthy Minds study is based at U of M. Daniel Eisenberg carries it out. Many of you have probably heard of it. If not, I would suggest going to that site. But we've done the survey in 2009, 2012, right as our grant was getting started, 2015 after it ended, and we'll do it again in 2018. And I could do an entire webinar on the various ways that you can use that data to build a case. For now, I'll just say it was essential to us, and I highly recommend it to any school. And the way we got the money sustained were two ways really. One, to keep the staff position, we had to take that through our annual budget review process. And that's where, softening the provost by having students meet with her and, doing some horse trading with the vice provost around the early college program and, getting support from the art therapy program all made a difference in the position getting approved through that really 6-month-long process we carried out every year. We have to argue for the position and then have people agree to it. The other thing that we did is that we had built in about $20,000 or $30,000 a year that was placed into our budget at the onset of the grant, and that just never stopped happening. We didn't really have to do anything with that. It just became part of the annual structure of the budget. They would have had, our accounting department would have had to have recognized that and pulled it out. So in a way, the win there was right at the beginning of the grant, just getting them to do that. And so the other thing I'll say is, we had a very nice thing happen this year that I'm fairly certain had something to do with the $306,000 grant that we had from 2011 to 2014. We got a large private gift from parents who have wished to remain anonymous that want us to raise disability awareness on our campus. And what they did is they structured it, a 5-year, $500,000 gift, very much based on what they were seeing over the time that their student was here at school through the suicide prevention grant that we had. And so in a way, this has been a gift that's kept on giving. We probably came out of this grant with 3 positions we didn't have. A postdoc was added, and we did get that care manager position eventually. And then this large private gift is going to allow us to do many, many great things for our campus, akin to what we did for the suicide prevention efforts.
Wow, I'm really glad to hear that you were able to just sustain that momentum going and just add more positions and even that private gift. That would be like a really huge just effort for the campus, so that's really great to hear. And Joe, I know you mentioned a lot about like infrastructure already, but if you had anything else to add in terms of what kind of infrastructure you were able to embed to existing structures during the GLS grant, that was especially helpful for sustaining any of your efforts beyond the GLS grant, that would be really interesting to hear more about.
Yeah, again, the infrastructure for us, I'm just thinking about the slide Bonnie was describing. For us, it would look like the mental health first aid training, the mental health promotion specialist position, our Wellness Center Student Support Network, and the Healthy Minds study. And, we very consciously, we made those activities, part of the fabric of this community in a way that made it almost impossible for the administration not to support continuing them. And even, at this small school, like I say, 3,700 students, 3,700 students, the person in the in the mental health promotion art therapist position is someone people got to know really well, and nobody wanted to see her lose her job, and that became a point that mattered. But the other thing is that I don't think the administrators had any interest in reducing a suicide prevention network. I think that's a risky proposition. And so, all of these structures became essential and problematic to withdraw. For example, our Wellness Center Student Support Network's grown every year. We probably have 250 students who are part of it. And they become part of it after they've done the mental health first aid training. They automatically become part of this. And, we meet every other week, and we talk about how to enhance peer supports on campus, and we keep doing really interesting things. I think some of the work they did helped us get this large private gift, too, because we've done some really compelling art shows, for example, on substantive topics related to mental health and well-being. So, again, I think to the extent that you can build these things into the fabric of your community, to the extent that you couldn't imagine functioning without them, you'll be served well. And so that's what we very consciously tried to do with all of those main essential activities that we carried out with our grant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love the phrase that you use, like build into fabric of the community, and that's like exactly what we're aiming for. So thank you so much for that explanation. And Bob, I just wanted to ask you the same question. Did you, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's so important to build yourself into the fabric of your community. A couple of ways that I've done it, we've done it here, is I'm a member of our behavioral intervention team, which is really responsible, that we meet once a week and responsible for those students that are identified at risk. And I pushed our postvention policy because we had a couple of deaths that could have been handled in a better fashion. So we created a postvention policy and actually combined it into our student death policy. Whenever there's a death, we discuss our safe messaging and what should go out to the community. We've had contact with the press and given them the safe messaging materials. That's been very helpful. I've maintained a very good relationship with our local crisis program, which has been very helpful. When somebody is at serious risk, they will provide a net for us for people that need a wider net than an individual counseling session. We've also maintained excellent relationships with our local hospital emergency department and local psychiatric hospital. But all of that takes a very focused effort to do. And what I do is I meet with all of those parties, or the local crisis program and the hospital, probably at least 2 times a year, just to discuss how we're working with one another. In terms of infrastructure, the other piece is, again, to become a part of the fabric of the community. All of the various affinity groups that are on campus often reach out, and they know that we're here, and they know that we can provide training and do for them. So just anyway.
Yeah, thank you so much for that remark, Bob. And at this time, we will be opening up for any questions for Joe and Bob. I know they have graciously joined us for this webinar, and it seems like Lisa and Tracy chatted in about being excited about the art therapy program, and some grantees have like similar programs, and it's really exciting to see that like other schools have been integrating the arts into therapy. So that seems like a great collaboration that is happening. And did anyone have any questions at this time? Operator Lauren, could you open up the line so people can either ask questions verbally or just chat in their questions?
Lines are now open.
Actually, Irene, can I just say something about what you said about art therapy?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll say, you know, it's been a challenge for us for many years trying to figure out how to get a staff position, an art therapist position within our counseling service, given the work of the counseling service clinically. And I'll say the mental health promotion work was ideally suited for our art therapy grads. And so there was a natural fit with the work of the grant. And afterward, we spent about a year, maybe two, really refining how to set up the clinical position within a counseling service, and have landed there. So if anyone's interested in figuring out how you have an art therapist within a counseling service, mainly staffed by psychologists and social workers, I could give you some insight into that.
Mhm. Yeah, Lisa or Tracy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Tracy. And so I'm curious because in Kentucky, we're considered mental health providers, and so we have licensure, and we've worked very hard, well, for about 20 years to make that happen. So is that not the case in I'm sorry, I think are you speaking from the Chicago Institute of Art?
Yeah, are you talking about for art therapy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in art therapy in Illinois, there's two licenses that you can pursue. One is a licensed professional counselor, and the other is a licensed clinical professional counselor. And the person who we hired through the grant had her LPC, and we've supported her with supervision to get the LCPC.
Gotcha. Was that why it was problematic to get an art therapist in the counseling center?
Well, it was more having to do with the size of our staff and a choice between doctoral level psychologists versus master's level art therapists. And there's some work that within those licenses, there's differences about what one can do in the state of Illinois.
Absolutely. Same here.
So we had to get the kind of a basic core staff and then add this to it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If anyone else have any questions, feel free to chat in or ask verbally at this time. So, Bob, it seems like...
This is still Tracy. I was going to say, we actually, the University of Louisville recently hired an art therapist within our counseling center. So, yeah, we're everywhere.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad it's spreading.
Yeah, did anyone else have any other questions or comments that you wanted to add? So, Bob, it seems like someone asked privately, they wanted to learn a little bit more about how you're working with your local NAMI chapter for gatekeeper training or suicide awareness trainings.
Would you like the answer now? They said they.
Oh, yeah, sure. You can, if you can answer now, that would be great.
What we do is they come to our campus about twice a semester, and my graduate assistant in suicide prevention, she will canvass the campus and publicize it, and then she partners with them, and we provide the space, and they come and provide the training. We've also have done suicide assessment for clinicians on campus with NAMI. And NAMI has a statewide clinical director who's quite skilled and a very good presenter. And we have a number of clinical programs on campus. So we basically ask the faculty, if they have students, if they could put it out in their classes, that we are offering the training. Very beneficial.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know. Did anyone else have any other questions that you wanted to ask Joe and Bob? Feel free to just speak up verbally or just chat in your questions. So Joe and Bob, I know you have been in their shoes a few years ago, so if you have any last piece of advice for second and third year grantees, like I feel like it could be really helpful. So Joe, did you want to start?
Yeah, I think you have to be strategic. And one of my favorite things about the experience I had with our grant was really the reinforcement and validation we got from our grant team about the need to be strategic and to really find your opportunities to argue for the resources. People on college campuses, I think, are really well-meaning, but we're the ones who have to advocate for things like suicide prevention work and activities. Those things can be very easily and kind of subconsciously left out of people's focus. So it really is a fight it's a good fight that we have to carry out to convince others and, compel them to support these kinds of activities on college campuses. And I think these days the arguments can be made in a very, very strong fashion, so that helps. And I just think I would just reinforce that if you're in year 2 and 3, keep fighting for the resources, find your opportunities, cultivate those partnerships, and have people go to bat for you when you can. But it's such crucial, essential work, and we're the ones who have to really take the lead and make it happen.
Absolutely. I really like that point. Bob, did you have anything else to add?
Mine's pretty simple, but difficult to do. It's just to persist and have hope in your heart, and maintain your focus and integrate yourself as much as possible into your community, and you'll be successful. It will continue. I really believe that good things continue, and the work that all of you are doing is wonderful. It's helpful, and I know that you're saving lives. My staff here do the ISP. I didn't share this before. They do the interactive screening program, and they do it out of the goodness of their heart. I don't pay them to be on 24/7 for a week at a time, because I have to respond fairly immediately to those to the dialogues. But so just believe, it happens.
Yeah, and I know that Joe and Bob have been really great examples of just persisting and keep on fighting for their funding to sustain some of their suicide prevention efforts beyond the grant. So thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's a really busy time of the year, so we really appreciate your time. And if you have any further questions, we have their contact information on the slide, so feel free to shoot them an email after the webinar as well. And so thank you so much, Joe and Bob, and at this time, feel free to just drop off and go back.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Good luck with your efforts as you carry this work out. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. Yeah, and at this time, Lauren, could you unmute the line? Oh, mute the line, please.
Lines are muted.
Thanks, Laura. So I hope you guys found that helpful. I think it's really great to hear from alumni speakers. So we wanted to take, in the remaining minutes we have, a little bit of time to wrap up and reflect about lessons learned. So, just going back to the beginning, what have we talked about? Well, we talked about adopting a sustainability mindset, cultivating partnerships, building momentum, and fostering leadership, and today securing funding and resources. And I talked a bit about the Leaving a Legacy report, and you can see the URL for that right on the screen if you want to read that. And so for homework, we asked you to look over your answers from the worksheet you filled out from session 1, prioritizing your work, and then filling in the worksheet sustainability action plan. So here's the sustainability action plan on the screen. I'm not going to have us go through it in detail, but I was wondering if anyone wanted to chat in and kind of say, like, did you learn anything from this worksheet? Was there, did you fill it out? And if you did, was there anything that, was helpful and that any strategic decisions that you made? And in fact, you know what, to make this easier, operator, I apologize. Can you unmute all the participants? I know we just had you mute them. I apologize. But could you unmute them, please?
Lines are now open.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So I'm going to call on my friends at Eastfield College, my good friend Courtney, who I call on all the time, but I know Brenda and Katie are also on there. Sorry? Courtney, Brenda, or Katie, I was wondering, was there anything from this worksheet or from the series in general, any strategic decisions that you've made? And you might have to star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hi. We didn't fill. Well, I didn't fill it out. So just being very honest.
No, it's okay. Sorry, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I'm sorry, Courtney. I'm the worst.
No, you're not.
You know, has there been kind of similar to the question we were asking earlier? Has there been any, strategic decisions that you made? Any prioritizing? For example, like tell us how you decided to work with HR. How that came about.
We actually wanted to do that because just like the gentleman was saying, at the end of our program, this is going to be it for at least Brenda and me. So what we wanted to do is to provide something that's going to be long-lasting that didn't require a coordinator. It can be something that can be sustained. Our counseling center is kind of small, so we didn't want to put more pressure on our counselors to have to continue to add on to their workload, and then on top of that having to present and different things like that. So one of the things that we thought about was that because we have such a large online population as well, why not just keep offering this online suite with Cognito and work with HR to get the message out to our adjunct faculty who may not be here on campus, as well as to our students who are as far as Houston or, in different areas. And I'm in Texas, by the way, so just being able to reach out to our students and faculty in a more effective way than that face-to-face interaction that we would like to have.
That's great, and it sounds like you've really thought this through thoroughly about, working with your online population, like you said, and being strategic since you're all not going to be here once the grant ends. So thank you, Courtney. Sorry,
no problem.
I keep on putting you on the spot. It's just because for some reason, you're my favorite.
It's because she rocks.
Yeah, she does. And also, you're all my favorites. So now,
Bonnie, this is Tracy. I have a question for Courtney. Hi. So do you require your students to do Cognito, or is it strongly encouraged, or how do you get students and faculty staff to complete Cognito?
The students are not required. I'm sorry. The students are not required here to fill it out or complete the Cognito online piece, but what we do is we do talk to our faculty. We have a really good relationship with our psychology and sociology, social work faculty. So we kind of reach out to them and ask them to put it in their classrooms, and it's a win-win for us because we get to get the information out to them, and the students receive extra credit and different things like that. So we encourage that so we can have better numbers. And another way that we reach out is through our student life office, through clubs and organizations to have them complete the training as well. And that's one of the slower processes that we have. We can get a few club students to do it, but it's mostly through our faculty and staff relationships. And because it's going to be required for faculty and staff to complete it, I think that once they see the benefit and once they have seen the benefit of taking the online training, they want to share it with their students too.
Right. So then did you get HR involved to require it? I've heard a lot of other schools say that, the faculty and staff getting, that completion has been a bit of a challenge with Cognito. And we have Cognito as well. And what we found is when we did the same kinds of things as extra credit in Gen 101 last year, but this year all Gen 101, arts and science anyway, will be it'll be, part of the curriculum.
That's good.
And that was our biggest, push or a couple of months of participation.
Well, with HR, it was a little easier because we're working on our policies to be more in line with what we think the students need as far as mental health services. We're also working with them because, it's perfect timing with Title IX and different things like that. So adding that piece to it, the suicide education piece, to our faculty and staff toolkit as a requirement, we just asked. We just said, hey, this is a service that's really good. This is something that we really need for our employees to know, and this can be helpful for all of us so that we can avoid some of those major issues that might come up later on in the year. So we just asked them, and they were really helpful.
All right, good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, for answering those questions and for letting me pick on you. But it was really great to hear about that and your collaboration with HR. I'm now going to turn it over to Irene.
Thank you, Bonnie and Courtney and Tracy. I loved hearing about that example, and I just wanted to highlight some resources that will be helpful for your next steps. SPRC Sustainability Guide and Workbook, which is already posted on the GLS Campus Sustainability website. I just shared it on the chat, so you can go check it out. We already went over most of them during our sessions, and the SPRC Sustainability Guide will walk you through 7 steps of sustainability planning, as you see from the chart here. The workbook includes worksheets that you can fill out. Most of them have been included as a part of each session's homework, but if you haven't had a chance to fill them out, I would encourage you to take a look at them. And if it would be helpful for you to take a look at other grantees' sustainability plan, because sometimes it's helpful for me, you can take a look at examples of University of West Florida and University of Massachusetts Amherst on the private pages under the grantee resources. Remember that you have to log in to access the private pages, so if you don't have access, feel free to email your prevention specialist. And just a quick reminder that if you're a project director, you already have a login, so just go to the login area and request new password. And if you check your inbox, you would have received an email from Scott Formica from SSRE. He is an external evaluator for SPRC, and he will be gathering feedback from you to see how SPRC can further improve the webinar series in the future. This survey should take less than 5 minutes, so please take a moment to fill this out, and it'll be extremely helpful for our planning process. And the survey is completely confidential, and SPRC won't have access to individual responses, so feel free to provide your honest feedback. And if you don't fill out the survey, you will be getting 2 reminder emails from Scott at a later date, so just letting you know. And as a reminder, the GLS Campus Sustainability website is another great resource for you. All the homework, meeting notes, and resources are posted there, so feel free to check it out. And we will send out an email about our final meeting notes and presentation once it becomes available on the website. And if you would like to keep in touch with participants from this webinar series, I know Courtney and Tracy just had a really great conversation, and if you ever want to follow up with anyone regarding some of the work that they're doing, email addresses are listed on Sustainability Series Participants Excel spreadsheet, and we will make sure to include this email when we send out the meeting notes as well. If you have any other questions regarding your sustainability plan, feel free to reach out to your prevention specialist, and they will be more than happy to help you. Oh, so I see Tracy's question. You can look at University of West Florida and University of Massachusetts Amherst. And it's helpful to look at both. So those are the 2 campus examples, and if you're interested in any tribal examples or state examples, those are also listed on there, so feel free to take a look at there.
So this is Bonnie. I just wanted to say a big thank you for participating. Irene and I really hope this was helpful. We love talking with you and hearing your stories. And, you know, we like to end every webinar with this dedication to think about those that we work with and the reason we do the work we do. I think Bob Small spoke really eloquently about this. You know, we want to stop deaths by suicide, and it can be really hard and tiring and frustrating work at times, but we're making such a difference. So thank you for being so dedicated to this cause, and thank you so much for participating. It's been wonderful working with you. Please feel free to reach out to Irene or me with any questions. And, of course, here are Bob and Joe's emails addresses. Before we log off for the last time, are there any questions? You can chat them in or say them verbally. I'll give you a minute. Okay, I don't hear or see any, so we'll end the webinar. Thank you again so much for attending. It's been wonderful talking with you. Please fill out the evaluation from SSRE and take care. Bye.
This concludes today's call. You may disconnect at this time.